Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Fratello Talks, the weekly short-form podcast where we skip the intro and jump right into it. This week, I'm joined by my colleague,
Morgan.
and we have a very special guest joining us from Belgium, Tom, a.k.a. Bowl of Salmon. Welcome to the show. You're our first
welcome.
our first guest on the video format of the show, and it's great to have you here.
Yeah, stress factors just went up.
Hey, listen.
First, thanks for having me. It's a real honor to be on the show. It's like a fanboy moment.
Cool.
Wow.
Cool. So cool to hear it.
Thank you very much.
Hey, of course, it's our pleasure to have you. And of course, our discussion today is going to be all about photography.
Yeah.
So we have a bunch of cameras on the table.
Yeah, true.
For those tuning into YouTube. But yeah, we're going to go through a bit of a photography Q&A. You were so kind to put it on your story and gather a little bit of intel for us, which is nice. So yeah, we got plenty of questions lined up, and we're going to get into it. But before, wrist check.
True.
So let's start with you, Tom. What do you have on the wrist today?
Well, I'm actually wearing Morgan, his Serica 5303.
Very nice.
Which is a really nice watch to have on the wrist, and I haven't checked it out yet, so it's fun to change it up.
Very nice, very nice. And Morgan, you're also wearing something.
Yeah, I have on the wrist. So Tom's Rolex Explorer 2. This is not my favorite 16570 reference.
Right.
This is
right.
the chunkier one, the newer one.
What's the reference?
215270.
22657.
Yeah, exactly what I said. Exactly.
That is what you said.
No, not at all.
Perfect. Yeah,
no, but
very
yeah,
nice.
yeah, you know my love for the Explorer 2, and I love that one too. So
very cool.
I had
very
a little time to wear it today, so that's fine.
Nice. Yeah, and I'm wearing the 2254, the Omega Seamaster Professional. Can't take it off the wrist. It's on a NATO, and
it looks great.
Always.
Yeah,
it's never far off the wrist. I have to say.
I think it's that watch is the watch that represents you.
Yeah, I think
this is the watch you would keep.
If I was in that awful scenario in which I had to clear out everything else, I think this would probably be the one that I would keep.
Yeah.
For Morgan, it still is old Explorer 2 for me.
Yeah.
Oh, really? I need to get that one back.
That's your watch.
Yeah.
For me, it's quickly become the Pelagos, I have to say.
Yeah.
I wore it. We were talking about it. It's more the Speedmaster, I think, because it was really a lot in your early photography.
That's a lifetime.
We're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves here. But so let's we have a bit of a loose structure lined up for the episode. We gathered some questions about photography, but I think let's start at the beginning with the first question, which was, and we'll sort of go around the table. I think you guys will answer. I'll chime in if it's ever interesting, but it should be you guys that do the talking. So we'll start off with when and how did you get into photography? We'll start with you, Tom.
Yeah, so I started about 15 years ago as a wedding photographer.
Okay.
That was my first gig that I did. I just shot one wedding for friends, and the next year I had 12 inquiries from other couples. So I just started a side business as a photographer, doing weddings slowly. That evolved into doing more commercial work and portraiture and magazine stuff. But I never did product photography up until COVID. And then I just went out on a whim and bought a watch, which was too expensive for the crisis that we were in. And then I started posting on Instagram, and everything just went crazy from there.
Okay.
And now I try to make it as a photographer in the watch niche. So
okay, interesting. Cool. And so you went into it really specifically sort of looking for wedding photography, or was it first a love for photography or an interest in general and then into wedding photography, or did you sort of dive straight into it?
I prepared for the job. I buy your first camera. My first camera was a Canon 400D DSLR back in the day. And then I took some shots on holiday, and friends of us saw the pictures and hey, you take nice pictures of monkeys and trees. And then I prepared
a wedding will be just fine.
Yeah, I prepared for a wedding. I really prepared for it. And I took a friend as a second shooter. Okay. Everybody kind of liked the pictures. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had the request, I guess.
For sure.
Probably, yeah.
But then I kept, hit it once. And then I just kept on, evolving from there, and you're honing a skill. And I really like being around people every weekend.
Right.
But then COVID hit, and I noticed I didn't miss the weddings anymore.
Okay.
So that's why I now have stopped shooting weddings.
And on to watches. Nice. And Morgan, how about you?
I think we talked about that already. I think it was probably 3 years ago, something like that. Yeah. When I started my Instagram account. Yeah, I think it would be probably 3 years ago. Yeah. And back then I was shooting with a Fuji Film X-T3. It was my first camera with the zoom lens on it, which was really nice. But then I wanted to go for something else, and then I upgraded. But yeah, I think it was 3 years ago. I just wanted to get better at photography because I was looking at people like probably you also, Tom, already. And I was like, God damn it, I want to do better than bad shots, So I just tried, and then.
And you said you went straight into Instagram as well, right? That was sort of, you got started, went right into Instagram. And for you, did that happen? Was that during COVID, right?
Yeah, but the name Bowl of Salmon was registered. Okay, I registered that a couple of months ago, before COVID, because I wanted to host workshops for photographers and creative people. But I never did anything with it. Then I just started posting wrist shots on Instagram instead of harassing my friends via WhatsApp. That's what happened. And I never really looked into it or just thought anything of it. And I never had any plans for Bowl of Salmon to be something about watches.
So it was just like organically it became what it was.
Everything has been a happy accident up until now. So.
Hey, that's the best way to get there. Cool. So then our second, and we've already kind of gotten into it a little bit, but it would be, how did you find your style and who inspires you?
Style is something as a photographer that you don't realize you have, I think.
Definitely. Definitely.
It only same with weddings, same with watch photography. It's you're able to see certain pictures and just say, hey, that's his style. For me, like a very good example would be Lars Erik Kim. So Lars Erik on Instagram, he does it really, really well. He has one style and he actually thinks he's like repeating himself, but I really appreciate how he's so consistent every day.
Skin tones, blah, 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 everything is good.
That was the first account that I followed before I was even into watches because I just liked the visual style of his stuff. The other one is Zach Pina. Pina. Like he shoots massive stuff for Hamilton now.
And that's the guy. Zach is the guy. Every time we naturally
you want him. But if you look at his Instagram, his shots variety is so different.
And he puts landscape shots in there as well.
But even if you, with all the variety that is there, you see a picture and you know it's him.
Yeah, of course.
That's like the style. But as a photographer, you don't know you have a style. I did the stupid blank stuff with the coffee pods, and somebody, like everybody thought, hey, this is Tom.
The Nespresso capsules as well.
So if I do the triangles on Instagram, everybody's going to say, hey, it's Tom and geometric shapes. But I never knew like what my style is. I still don't know what my style is. Everything starts with the light, I guess.
Also the edit, of course.
The edit,
the edit does for something because when you see, let's say Kim is shooting with Leica, I think, Leica Q2 and maybe now SL something, but I also have the same camera, so technically when I take a picture outside, it's going to be kind of the same picture, but then the edit is completely different.
Yeah, but we just checked each other's cameras, which
sounds
weird.
Really different.
Sounds weird, but still, if we handle each other's camera, it's different.
For sure.
Like you need to adapt to a camera, or the camera has to adapt to you. I had owned a Leica Q2 for a while because I really liked what everybody was doing with it, but I couldn't make it mine. So
that's the thing. It's your sort of every painter uses a brush, but every painter's artwork is vastly different, right? So I think it goes into it. It's your camera's your paintbrush, and then your editing is maybe your colors, and then it sort of turns into this final work. And then whether you like it or not, there's going to be this personal bias that sort of gives you your own sort of flavor of
I think style comes naturally. You can learn every technical thing about photography. Everything is out there.
It's helpful, but it's just a tool.
But style is something you'll move into without knowing it. That's my
absolutely.
But also, what you would like is what the photographer tried to say with this picture. Let's say you take a look at what Watch Studies does. That I really love that account, and a lot of us also love it. Is doing a lot of great stuff, lessons and everything every week. And when you take a look at what he's doing, this is the watch. This is like in studio and everything. But someone who is also inspiring me is like the Watch Dude too. It's an English guy, Alan. And what I like with his style, you like the edit or not, that's not the case, but it gives he's not shooting only the watch, but it's a scene, you know, and it brings you into that scene, while I don't know, hiking, diving or whatever. And that's what I really love about his style, and that's also what inspires me, like to see what people can do.
Those are the photographers and the styles of pictures that I stop scrolling Instagram for, because there's so much to learn and how they do it, and it's maybe the most furthest apart from my style, and that's why I really like those guys.
That's awesome.
It's got to be a lot of hit and miss, right? Because you can go out there on a day and just not have any good light, and then it's the kind of thing where you go, then it's a write-off. But on the studio, I mean, in the studio, you're able to create the light you need, right?
Yeah.
But when you're out there, it's like, it could just be a miserable, cold, rainy, dark day.
It's a bit of a golden cage. Well, you're used to a studio setup.
Yeah.
So Morgan had a different studio setup, and it's like I need to adapt to it. I know my stuff.
For sure.
And if you go out, like as a wedding photographer, you show up every weekend and you need to improvise. Sometimes it's raining, sometimes the light is terrible, or the bride is getting prepared in like the worst possible light.
You move the situation your normal thing.
Yeah. But
do you find that now, because you sort of cut your teeth on wedding photography, do you find that now getting into product photography and focusing on product photography is kind of like a nice safe space where you can control everything a little bit more?
Maybe, but I want to step out of the comfort zone as well.
Okay,
I mean, the only product photography I've done up until now was doing a bunch of vegetables. And I swear that tomatoes have highlights as well, and you need to control the highlights on a tomato. Watches.
A wet tomato or a dry tomato?
I couldn't do it for every type of product. I like watches, and I think that's why I love spending much time into one shot or multiple shots, spending the time with it. But I love to venture out and do more stuff and combine my portraiture that I did with watches and people. But for now, like, hey, the watches listen to me, and if I would go out for a wedding now, I'd ask my couple to do this, so it's 10 and 10.
Nice.
There you go.
So let's stick with watches for now. It works.
Perfect. Very nice. Yeah, I would say for me, obviously, finding your style is something that's very abstract. I'd say just shoot as much as you can, edit as much as you can, get through as many pictures as you can, and then eventually somebody will tell you, hey, I like your style of photography. And then you will say, I don't think I have one. But
you can't really control it too, because let's say we're going to have the same setup. The three of us are going to shoot it. It's going to look different.
Oh yeah, of course. Even your natural physiology. I think the angles that you
pick, of course.
Right. It's
part of it.
Exactly. If you're more shooting overhead or shooting at an angle, I think that it's also things to consciously think about and try to break away from the ones that you sort of very much rely on. There's these tendencies when you like what becomes a style is also a tendency, and then it's nice to try and become a bit conscious of it and break away from it a little bit. To try and do something different. And then that's the nice thing about stepping out of your comfort zone, right? It's
but I think Morgan is a really good example of stepping out of the comfort zone and like handling it under pressure. You only have like a couple of hours with each watch, and you need to perform.
Definitely.
Sometimes a couple of minutes.
You're at Watches. I saw you work at Watches and Wonders with the horrible lighting conditions, and the shots you did were really great. And like that's a skill. Like that's a real skill to have.
I think that's what I prefer actually. It's stressed. It's stressing me out, and it's like not easy and everything. But every time I'm on location, I'm like, I don't know, it's like positive stress. I have to do it, and I really enjoy that.
But the pictures you did of all the Omegas, the 70th anniversary Omegas that you did, I think it was at Omega HQ, and they turned out amazing. All you had was basically a window and
a meeting table.
Exactly.
And that's it.
And the fun part is being on location. You see new stuff. Like
for sure.
If I have to shoot in Ghent, my hometown, it's like this is just Ghent. But you go to New York and suddenly it's crazy.
Yeah, but for the guy coming from New York, it's the opposite.
It's the opposite. Exactly. That's a fun part.
Yeah, you
about
get
being
inspired
on location.
you get inspired by your surroundings.
But still, you have to perform under pressure.
Very cool. Very, very cool. Nice. So let's move on to. So now we're kind of putting you guys on the spot. So we want some tips for a perfect wrist shot. What's your go-to tips?
I would use, let's say, maybe a curtain, a window, if you are using natural light. If you're not outside, like the curtain shot, boom, done. Like a white curtain with the natural light coming from it. And then you just put yourself just in front of it. And what I would do is like something I was doing without knowing it was how Watch Studios was doing it, for example.
Like the parrot shot.
Yeah, the parrot shot. So you would grab your camera, you know what? You would grab your camera and go.
Yeah, you put it on your shoulder. That's
And then what I like to do is to put my my arm close to my chest like that.
Yeah.
And then if you're like good enough, you can take a look at the screen.
Exactly.
And then you just aim at the watch and boom, done. That's what I'm doing.
For sure. Yeah, I tend to do the same. I think that the curtain with nice diffused light is fantastic. And then if you're out and about, probably in the shade, and then being in the shade has the added advantage that you'll have something overhead that isn't the bright sky. Because if you have the bright sky, then you're going to get all the reflections on the dial.
Depending on the watch,
it can work, and it really depends on the watch. But I'd say the parrot shot, the famous parrot shot, is a very good method for a nice wrist shot.
What do you guys do?
I can tell you what I used to do and then what I do now.
Okay,
what I used to do, I did a lot of sort of holding my wrist out like this.
And you shoot from that angle.
And exactly, and sort of shooting just into to get a bit of depth of field.
Okay, yeah.
But I find that adding the context of if you shoot down next to your sort of hip, you have the context of the shirt and it
what
adds
you're
a bit of
wearing
texture.
and everything,
For sure. And then another thing, I used to do a lot of wrist shots where I didn't have long sleeves. And of course in the summer you don't have a lot of choice, right? But in winter, and it's super nice to get your sleeve close to the watch. It'll give it a little bit more texture, a little bit more interest, and then you're not looking at just the arm without a lot of context.
Like it adds textures.
Exactly.
And
and it gives it a little bit more color. Adds a bit of color to the shot, and it's always a nice thing.
What are your favorites for wrist shots on Instagram?
I think Kim Lars Erik is a really good one. I have to
great.
say,
it's fantastic.
I would say Michael.
Michael Adcock.
Michael Adcock also is doing crazy.
He does
good
more
stuff.
of the camera on a tripod or camera away
I don't know how he does it.
from himself.
Yeah. He has a wife.
He just goes out there with a
who's
tripod.
taking pictures every time. No, I don't know.
Or he has a tripod and just has the
probably.
countdown timer, sets up the shot. But I mean, that's a lot of dedication. Hiking out to the middle of the woods.
And what about you? Which one is?
I think Tom, Speedy Shutter.
Yeah. Oh, true.
me too.
Yeah, he's using flash. I think.
I don't know how he does it. Like
It's
nuts.
good.
a bit sharp front to back, and
And what about you? How do you do the wrist shot?
a bit of what you explained, but with more neck cramp.
Yeah.
I don't like doing them that much. If I'm
with
out and
that
about
lens,
and see good lights, I'll usually find soft light. Like I
Right.
gravitate towards soft light and not harsh light.
right.
Something I want to do more, but
It depends on where I am, to be honest.
And then I would say for people out there who are not using necessarily a camera and that are using their smartphone, then we have to look to our colleague Dan,
true.
Flip the Parrot, who flips. That's his whole Instagram tag is the parrot shot. But what he does is he flips his phone so that the camera is at the bottom.
Yeah, next
and
to
he
his
holds
chest-
it.
his chest,
He holds it like almost against his chest, and that creates that bit of shadow that keeps the dial nice and dark, and it adds a bit of depth from the
don't
shirt.
get an orange iPhone cover like me. That's it.
Oh yeah, then
That's
then
a
it's
terrible
game
idea.
over.
It can work
You
well
just
with
see
that
orange.
watch.
Yeah, no.
Oh, with that one it might work.
Yeah.
Perfect, nice. So that's very cool. And then how about? And I think we're gonna have to ask Morgan about this one. But some tips for Lume shots. How do you get a good Lume shot?
Loom shots. So
Tricky
I like
stuff.
to do a loom shot.
Yeah.
So first, don't be afraid about cranking up the ISO a little bit. I'm not telling you shoot at ISO 12,800.
Right.
But if you're like around ISO 2,100, 1,600, that's perfectly fine. Even more now, because on Lightroom, when you post-process your picture, you have the denoise feature.
Yeah, that's nice.
Don't abuse it. Don't go like 100% denoise, because then
It gets a bit artificial
It's
looking.
going to be weird, but then you can save a lot of things. What I'm doing is I usually put the camera on a tripod.
Okay.
I put a countdown timer, let's say 10 seconds.
Okay.
So during that time, first things first, I'm pressing the shutter so the camera will not move. And then while the countdown timer is going, I'm just using a UV torch and I'm just like...
Yeah, sort of activating the
Yeah,
boom.
exactly.
Yeah.
On the watch to the last minute. When it's 1 second, poof, I remove the light. And then you have kind of the most bright scene possible with the camera.
And I think if you don't have a UV torch, you can use your phone's flashlight. I mean, any
true.
bright
There's
light
something that will activate the lume on the watch.
And
also, what you need, sorry. Also, what you need is to be in a dark
Exactly.
environment.
That's what I was going to say.
Of course.
It can't be in broad daylight. It's well, maybe with the Pelagos it can be.
Maybe with the or the Panerai, maybe.
Yeah, but I try to. I use actually our lovely set here quite a bit for loom shots because the light is a little bit more indirect and it creates a bit of a darker space. So like using a shelf or something like that is quite nice because it'll be a little bit of a less direct light and then I think that's it. I think that's kind of the trial and error, right?
Yeah,
I
exactly.
just did the assignment for Studio Underdog with the the Lume dials.
Lume dials, yeah.
And actually, I composited all of them.
Okay.
So I could take a base shot and then do a Lume shot and get all the details in that I want. So you can still recognize
together,
like logos and all that stuff.
Right.
So you have the case nicely lit and then have the Lume pop. That's how we did it there.
Cool.
But
I don't know if people would like to see more of that on YouTube, like maybe some
like a tutorial.
Yeah, like tutorial on different thing, like tutorial on a wrist shot, tutorial on the on the Lume shot. So yeah, I don't know, guys, but if you want, just let us know in the comment.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe we can do it.
If you're listening, head on over to the website and just leave a little comment under the episode. If you're still hanging in there, it's just, we're getting very technical. So I hope I hope there's at least some of you guys that are enjoying us getting into the nitty gritty of it. So speaking of which, we're actually going to get into gear now.
Oh,
so the good thing is we have it here on the table. But the first question would be, what camera do you use, and what is your go-to lens? Tom?
Yeah, I had to check my invoice because I actually don't know the reference on my cameras. It's an A7R5.
Okay.
I just upgraded to that camera because it has 60 megapixels.
Oh, wow.
And it can shoot 8K video if I need to. So that means I can really crop the shit out of it.
Right.
Yeah, and my favorite lens would be for watches and product photography would be the 90 millimeter macro.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I also have the 2470 on right now, which just gives me... I never used any zoom lenses as a wedding photographer. I was a prime-only guy.
Right.
But 2470 gives me like options when I'm shooting in the studio, and if you're on a tripod and you don't want to move it around, just gives me more options and makes me a lazy photographer, I guess.
So you would use those two lenses?
Those two lenses is...
lazy or effective?
But because you can do video.
We'll call it effective.
Yeah, exactly. Video and photo with it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
That's why it's Sony for me.
Awesome. Nice. Yeah, it sounds like a really versatile setup, right? I mean, 60 megapixels gives you plenty enough to crop, and 8K video is you're going to be uploading for a long time.
Yeah, but I don't post 8K.
No, okay.
If you need it,
yeah, for sure. Morgan, how about you? You
actually,
have two go-tos, right?
Yeah, kind of the same as you, Tom. I'm using a Canon EOS R5, which has only 44 megapixel.
That's plenty.
Yeah, it's plenty enough. Also, I can crop in quite a lot. And I'm using the 90 millimeter equivalent in Canon catalog, which is the 100 mil macro also, and the 2470 2.8, which is kind of the same.
And I just checked; it's super crisp.
Yeah, it's a great lens, I have to say. And I didn't know it was that different from. I mean, the colors from your camera and mine are completely different, but also the sharpness of the lens is.
But if we go back to the style, like, the camera does play a part.
For sure.
No camera will make you a better photographer.
No.
It will make your job easier, but it will also set a style and like colors.
Absolutely.
I started with Canon over the years. Then I did 10 years of Fuji on the X system for weddings because they're light. And then, like, if you're looking for, I'm probably moving ahead on the topics, but if you want something affordable that's really good, that doesn't break the bank, go with Fuji.
That's
with
what I did.
They have
That's
really
what I did
good
in first
lenses
place.
as well. They're light and compact. You can still I don't travel with this.
No,
it's
for
too
sure.
heavy.
But like a system camera is quite a useful thing.
And also used Leica Q2.
Yeah.
But more for myself and more like I can take watch pictures with it, and I do for my Instagram. But as a professional photographer for watches, I'm using the Canon. In your turn now?
Oh, I'm using the old junker. I'm using the camera hoopty basically. It's the Olympus Olympus Pen EPL8 that just won't die. No, it's for me it's a great camera because it's basically. I mean, I started with a Nikon way back in the day, a DSLR, and then I moved on to this one because it had the Wi-Fi transferring capability, and then also moving ahead with the topic, it meant that I could Wi-Fi photos to my phone and edit them on Lightroom Mobile, which was quite nice, and then straight to Instagram, and then getting into doing a little bit of photography for Fratello. It just still proved to be a really good camera not for its megapixels, not for its sharpness, but more so for the fact that it's got great image stabilization, which means that you can handhold at really low shutter speed and still get away with it. And for me, it's small, it's portable, it's light. You can sling it around your neck and just have it with you all the time. And I have to say, since I got the 30 millimeter macro, I have hardly taken that lens off the camera. It's just great. You can focus right into the dial. You can take a good wrist shot with some nice depth of field from a little further away. It's a fantastic lens.
It works.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. For me, that's it. And maybe upgrade in the future. But for now, I'm still happy with my Olympus.
Yeah.
So.
You
and it looks cool.
Yeah. You understand
cool.
that camera, and you know it so well now.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. It's like you know the controls, and once you're tuned into the controls, it's you don't even have to think about it. You could take a picture blindfolded. It'll be half decent.
I think for you, the Leica is like your passion camera.
Yeah, exactly.
The other one is the workhorse.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
You need a bit of both to
Yeah.
not see photography as a job, which
Exactly,
that
yeah.
happened for
Exactly,
me.
and it's easy to bring the Q2 around, like you
For
said,
sure,
with your
for sure.
camera. It's just lighter. It just I don't have to. Which lens will I take?
with the
blah, blah,
Q2,
blah.
it's-
It's fixed on it, so I don't have any choice. So done.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that even when I get a potentially a better, more professional camera, I think that I would still stick to the
of
to
course.
the Olympus
Yeah, of course.
as like a throw it in your bag and have it with
Exactly.
you, right? Because it's it's nice. Perfect. So moving on to the next bit of gear that's pretty essential: lights.
Yeah.
Where do we stand on lights? None of us use flash, right?
Go for it, Tom.
I don't use flash. No,
Okay.
I think
Okay.
it's not easier. So for me, I use continuous light.
Okay.
Because I move around from photography to videography.
Right.
If I would have to switch between strobes and video lights, I would have to redo the whole setup. So for me, continuous lights are the go-to. And I think it's also for most people the easiest one to start with. And it doesn't have to break the bank.
Yeah.
You just need to know how to control your light and how
sure.
to modify the light, finding the light. That's the basic.
Okay.
And with continuous light, you can just see what's happening with your shot. If
Exactly.
you dim your lights or you increase your shutter
true.
speed, you see what's happening. You can adjust to that.
Yeah.
So first controlling your light, and then controlling reflections on that as well.
Yeah.
Add some diffusers.
Yeah.
So it's softer if you want it to be softer.
For sure.
If it needs to be harsh, you can play around with that too. And again, that's a style.
Yeah.
And there's many things to learn. You can mimic sunlight if you want.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
So for me, I have a rather probably too expensive setup at home. I use Aperture 120Ds, big soft boxes from Aperture as well, smaller, all sizes.
Yeah.
But I think the key thing for my studio would be like diffusers,
Yeah.
diffusers and white paper, black paper.
Yeah,
just to fill in
definitely,
reflections, block reflections.
Yeah.
And if you want like a more budget-friendly kit, I'd suggest you check out Godox. They have
Godox is good.
good studio stuff. Honestly.
Sure. Or even I think we have our little travel kit that we use for events and stuff like that. We just have a little sort of LED panel that's in a small tripod. We use one of these fold out diffusers, and it gets the job done, right?
If you use a couple of LED lights like the tubes,
Yeah.
and you put them through a diffuser, and you get in close.
It's about the principle, right?
That's the thing. When you're on the go, like let's say Watches and Wonder, for example, sometimes you have like, and it's not sometimes, it's all the time. You have half an hour to shoot, I don't know, 5 watches. You're like, all right. So you have to be fast. And in the bad conditions, like 90% of the time, 99% of the time. So Nacho came up with that little setup, like a small LED thingy on a small tripod, the foldable diffuser.
Yeah.
And then you have to hold it and you have to put it on your, sometimes on your forehead like that. And you just have to work with it. And it's not the best,
not
but
pretty, but it gets the job done.
It gets the job done.
Exactly,
And the results can look as good.
That's
I mean, bigger setup.
From what you can expect from a shooting like that, of course, it's going to be not that
Shout
bad.
out to Lange for actually having a proper studio in their booth. It Watches and
true.
Wonders. That's when I walked in there, I was like, this is so
proper.
nice.
You just have to put your camera up, boom, boom, done.
Oh, it's fantastic.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's strange that a lot of brands don't do that.
No.
Every time we give them feedbacks, and the year after, they try to improve,
they do.
which is nice.
They do, yeah. Zenith has a great booth because it's got a big softbox as the ceiling.
Awesome.
So then everywhere you have great light.
Yeah.
And Grand Seiko also has little softboxes that you can
there's
use,
a lot of
which are quite good. So, but I mean, for the most part, you need to have. You go into the Cartier booth and.
That's
good luck.
Really bad. Even the Rolex one, oh my god.
Oh yeah, true.
I think the Rolex one was even worse.
Yeah, it's very bright and it's a lovely place, but not for photography.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure. Cool. Nice. So for lights, I don't think we discussed the ones that we use here, but it's the same.
Kind of the same.
Similar
or
thing.
for me, natural light also.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for me, it's always natural light. If I can shoot with natural light, I will rather be out in the courtyard that we have here at Fratello headquarters with maybe a couple of reflectors, something like that. But even then, just using natural light and that's it. So yeah, perfect. And so the next and final, when it comes to gear, would be what's another essential piece of gear? Like we've spoken about diffusers, we've spoken about a few things, but how about in terms of sort of props, backgrounds, and other bits of kit that you find very useful?
For me, it would be the C stand. The question I got asked most is, how do you make it float? Which is, if I have my watch is standing up on the bracelet, and like, there's just So I went to an AD, and the ones you see in the windows, like a C, it's a proper C stand with a little foot. I cut off the base, so it's only the C stand, just what you have here, and that's how you put up the watch. And the other one would be Blue Tack.
True.
Yes,
I was about to say that.
I swear with Blue Tack.
So gotta have it.
So you can make the watch all in place.
Yeah, and then third, the blower pairs to get the dust off.
Yeah. And even a soft brush is quite good for dust. Like if it gets between the bezel.
Also for watches, I would say shoot with gloves.
Oh yeah.
Like not white gloves. Not like light color gloves. Usually black gloves, like the little jewelry gloves that you can have. First, your hand is not going to reflect on the watch because this is shiny object. And second, when you hold the watch and you move it around, you're not going to put your fingerprints on it and then spend hours on Lightroom removing it, or it's just sometimes not possible even. And so every time I'm shooting, you will see me with gloves hanging around and doing my thing with my gloves on.
For sure. It looks like you're going to rob a bank.
Yeah, it's not because I'm precious. It's because I just want to have my watches clean.
You can clean your smudges. Your hands are invisible basically because then they're not reflected on the dial. And
also sometimes when you're like on the go and like stressed out, like at watches and windows, let's say, you're like kind of sweating. So every time you hold the watch, it's a nightmare. So when you have your gloves, it's less worse.
True. You've eaten your 15th sandwich and you're you don't want to get any fingerprints. Perfect. So then moving on from gear to our final major point of editing. What is your go-to software for editing?
Lightroom.
Yeah, same. Lightroom.
I think it's got to be Lightroom, right?
And Photoshop.
Lightroom and a bit of Photoshop. I think that's the same.
90% of the time, I don't get off my iPhone for everything I post on Instagram. It's only for clients work that I'll move on the computer and then work to Photoshop. So.
You two guys are doing that, and for me, I edit nothing on my phone. Everything has to go.
Interesting.
Everything has to go to the computer, which is not handy because when I'm outside, I'm taking a picture, then I have to go back to my computer and everything.
But there you go. That's it.
But the best possible preview you can have is on your phone.
Yeah, that's
so because the end goal for me, if it's just Instagram we're talking about, like I want to see how it looks on a phone.
Yeah, for sure.
And my editing is really none.
I've edited on my computer and transferred to my phone and gone, I don't like this picture. I have to re-edit it because the screen you're looking at is different.
And of course. Calibrating for print.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, cool. So Lightroom is definitely the way to go. Lightroom Mobile, $50 a year. I think it's so good,
between the desktop.
Photoshop is for me. It's more for the dust removal part because on Lightroom it's not that efficient, and on Photoshop you just go boom, 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 boom. It takes some time because
the algorithm is a little bit better for sure. It doesn't sample so much as it just removes it,
which is weird because it's still Adobe. So it's kind of weird, but I feel like Photoshop for dust removal works better.
The power that they put into a mobile device, like on Lightroom Mobile, is crazy.
It's nuts. That's completely nuts.
But they change it so often. Like the rating system.
And where you find everything as well. Oh man,
I don't like that. So I still use Lightroom Classic.
Okay.
And that one doesn't change that much on the mobile?
No, actually it doesn't. No, they still upgrade it, which is cool. But I have this DJ panel. MIDI Fighter Twister has 60 knobs that I can turn. So without looking, you can still feel where your hand is. I can do every correction with 60 knobs.
Interesting.
And buttons. So I'll show you later.
Damn, you're like a DJ of photo editing.
Yeah, my kid thinks, hey, Dad,
I never use that thing. I'm curious to see how it works.
Yeah, because it's tactile. You feel the knobs, and if you have iPad apps for that as well, but then you have to look where you place your finger.
And you have that. Do
you I know some photographers use a tablet.
I don't.
Those Wacom tablets or whatever.
Never did. No.
Okay.
My Apple Pencil keeps breaking. I stopped buying in one after like 3 pencils.
Right. And then so speaking of then editing, what are some of your go-to edits?
I don't have a preset.
Okay.
None. Even I just like blindly can go like, hey, increase contrast, texture, sharpness. Like for mobile, over sharpen the fuck out of it.
Really? Okay.
So just do that and it will make
sharpen it.
Yeah, and then put the lower exposure and then do a radial brush around, like not around the watch, but make it like
the dial
look like there's
like
a pop of light hitting it. So it's not like make the radial thing big enough. So like the objects, like the watch pops out of the screen. So and clarity as well. Bit of clarity, texture, sharpness. Those are the basics, and contrast.
And then that's also why you find these settings in the beginning.
I still think I have a high key style and not a underexposed moody style, but still I try to make it a bit darker.
Sure.
No, which is fine. I don't think it's a wrong thing.
No, it's cool. I think most people tend to err on the side of making the pictures a little darker, and I find myself certainly doing that. And then I'll look at the last few pictures I've posted and think, man, I really have to brighten something up.
And for me, metal has to look like metal.
Okay.
So if there's too many objects in the scene that would like color pollute it, I'll make sure it's better in camera, but I'll use a brush and like desaturate
the case.
So you don't.
It still has to look a bit realistic. You don't go overboard with it, but that makes the object pop and make the people look at the watch first and then see what's around it.
Yeah, a bit of vignette. Bit of vignette is also nice, just to bring a bit of interest to the watch, and
for me, draw the eye to the main subject.
And then for me, it's always like create the contrast with the whites and blacks. So just pump the whites, a little bit of blacks, just to highlight the shadows. But then I also bring the shadows up and the highlights down a little bit. It gives it more of a flatter look, a bit more of an HDR kind of thing, and then a bit of vignette, a bit of clarity, a bit of dehaze, always a little bit as well.
Friend.
But I think
on the dial, dehaze, bam.
And then exactly a radial filter on the watch itself, and then add a bit of texture to it, and then that's basically it. But, and you use a little bit more of the linear filters,
that's
in the corners, which is because I've started doing that a little bit as well.
I don't know if I'm known for that, but I really love simple shots.
Yeah.
Like without a lot of thing in the frame except from the watch. Yeah. So when you do that, you have to have at least something else interesting to look at. So for me, it's going to be control of the light.
Yeah.
So I'm going to, let's say, use one light that is going to highlight the watch from the bottom, from the top left corner. Mm-hmm. And then for the rest, I'm going to try to shape the light, so adding radial gradient and removing a little bit of exposure, adding a little bit of contrast and stuff like that. So I can shape the light and I can make it look as I want,
Okay.
That's what I'm doing, a lot of radial filters in general,
And the good thing is we're not shooting on film, so you can just reset your edit, play around with it. Shoot raw, always shoot raw, and then use the white balance pipette thing and just click on anything that's more or less gray. Look at the little 3 numbers that pop up. Find one where they're all roughly the same. And then you're gonna have I think we could go on for a little bit longer, but let's wrap it up with one final question from your collection: favorite watch to shoot and least favorite watch to shoot.
Favorite watch to shoot would be the Rolex.
The Explorer.
Yeah, the Explorer 1. Because it's kind of easy. It's like black and white kind of thing. So if there's like on the dial, if there's like color, boom, you just remove the saturation of it and no more color and it still stays black.
Yeah, true,
so it's easy.
True. Yeah.
And the crystal, because it's a flat crystal also, when you want to have a little flecto on it, it's kind of easy.
It's a little easier than on a
it's
dome.
easy, it looks good.
That's why I don't like the Speedy to shoot it like.
And that's what my next point, my least favorite is the Speedmaster first.
Right.
The bezel gathers so much dust.
Yeah.
And every time I'm like, before shooting, I'm like, I'm going to clean it up because I don't want to spend hours on the post-processing thing. And every time there's as much as dust as before I cleaned it up. Yeah. And because it's a dome sapphire crystal, the reflection on it is so hard to get
but
right.
If you get it right,
Hesselite.
It's still the best looking watch for me.
That's a good looking watch for sure. Yeah. So for me, that would be it. What about you, Nacho?
But let's skip over to you, Tom. What's your favorite watch to shoot?
I think everything happened for me on Instagram with the Seiko SPB 143, which is a really you put it on the wrist, you look at it, it's always looking good.
It's so photogenic.
For me, it's a really easy watch to shoot.
Yeah,
it's been a while since I haven't seen it.
I don't wear it that much anymore. I think the Pelagos took over. So last summer I didn't. I didn't take it with me. It's still there. I don't want to sell it.
You have memories.
I have too many travel trips, memories.
Hey, you never know. It's
and when I put it on, I love the watch, and then
Cool. And least favorite Speedmaster, you said, right?
Speedmaster, the Santos as well, too shiny.
That shiny bezel.
Do you want the bezel shiny? Do you want it all black?
It's tricky.
How does it need to be? Do you need to see the surrounding or not? It's like you need to take a picture of the watch how it really is in real life, but as a photographer, you try to make it look as best as possible. It's like shooting a wedding, your bride. They're not all models. You just want it to look as best as possible.
Yeah, on that day. And it's your job to do that.
And it's your job to do that. So
cool. Yeah, I think for me, my favorite is probably the probably this one. I'd say the Seamaster 300 because it's got good AR and it's a little tricky with the Lume color because it tends to be a little bit green and I try not to desaturate it too much. But it's again one of those a bit like the SPB 143. It's just super photogenic and it just always looks good. And my least favorite's the Panerai.
Oh,
yeah, because that thing has the worst AR ever. The AR is terrible. It's an older Panerai.
What about the Hamilton?
The Hamilton AR is
really
bad,
hard, also.
But that has a black and white dial, so that it's easier to just sort of desaturate it. Whereas with the Panerai, it's got a brown dial, and that brown dial will look every color but the color that you see it in real life. Yeah. So it's so tricky to get it the right amount of saturation and everything. So it's a tricky watch to shoot. Yeah. But again, if you get it right, then it looks great.
Cool.
Awesome. Hey, well, thanks so much, Tom, for joining us, for taking the time for this special photography Q&A episode. It's been great having you on.
Thank you.
And yeah, thanks, Morgan, for joining us and for your insights. I think that's it for this week. So as always, remember to like, subscribe, comment, and we will catch you next week for another episode of Fratello Talks. See you then.